So you and your friends were having a normal conversation and then suddenly one of you goes, "Man, we are really funny. People would want to listen to this. We should start a podcast." And then everybody's like, "Man, that's such a great idea. You have great ideas." So then you start researching how to start a podcast and the equipment needed to do so. And you find yourself stumbling upon the Zoom PodTrak P4. And you start looking up, I wonder if this is good for me. So you type in the YouTube reviews and that leads you here. Let's talk about the PodTrak P4. The PodTrak P4 is advertised as a beginner podcast all-in-one recording studio. But just how good is it really? Is it really worth all of that hype? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's learn all about the PodTrak P4. Believe it or not, this is everything you get in the box. We do reverse unboxings here, so let's just put everything back in the box. So here we have the actual PodTrak P4 recorder. We'll go into depth about more of it later, but when you get it in the box, it's just going to come in this little black sleeve. And then that just gets folded. And it gets placed right there in the box. Now, if you see right here, there's a little hole. Some people I've seen on YouTube have batteries here, but mine, I guess, just doesn't have them. You can even see on the back of the box it says batteries not included. So I guess I gotta find my own. And then right here we have all of our quick start information, which got sent to me upside down. So I'm gonna put it back upside down because this is an authentic reverse unboxing experience. And then we close up the box and just shut it in. And yeah, this is literally everything that you get in here. Talking more in depth about the PodTrak, we'll start here at the top. We have 4 Xlr inputs, which means 4 separate microphones can be plugged in at the same time. And each of these get recorded on 4 separate tracks. Now, if we move down, we'll see that there are 4 separate knobs and that controls the gain. Each one of these Xlr inputs gets 70 decibels of gain that you can control independently of one another. Having such a high gain ceiling allows for even the most gain-hungry microphones, SM7B, to be used with enough adequate volume. Now let's move a little lower. Underneath each of the gain knobs, you'll find a little switch. For inputs 1 and 2, those switches control the phantom power. If you're using a dynamic microphone, those don't need to have phantom power in order to function. But if you're using a condenser microphone, those do need phantom power. So all you need to do is push the switch over to the right, and now that gives power to the XLR, so now you can use your condenser microphones. Now what you'll notice on inputs 3 and 4 is some extra symbols. Input 3 has a phone symbol, and input 4 has the USB symbol. So what exactly do these do? Now if you look at the side of the PodTrak P4, what you'll find is the same phone symbol next to an input jack of sorts. Now if you take your TRRS cable and plug it into this port here in the PodTrak P4 and then plug the other end into your phone, you can actually directly record phone calls directly into the PodTrak P4. Now what you'll notice is that there's actually 2 input jacks here. Zoom sells a device with the code BTA2. It's a Bluetooth adapter. So what you can do is plug the BTA2 directly into the PodTrak P4, connect it to your phone, and now you can wirelessly directly record phone calls into the PodTrak P4, and it still gets put onto its own separate channel. Even though for me personally, I prefer to hardwire things when it comes to recording and audio, it just makes me feel better to have a wire rather than Bluetooth. Now input 4, we have the USB symbol. If we flip it to the other side from where the power button and the Bluetooth capabilities are, you'll find the USB symbol. Now what this allows us to do is use the PodTrak P4 as an audio interface or record like a conference call using it, which covers basically everything you could ever want as a podcaster, recording directly from people in front of you or using phone calls or even using like conference software. And all you would have to do is take the inputs and push them toward the phone or the USB, and that activates those features. Now keep in mind when those features are active, the phone and the USB, the XLR mic inputs do in fact turn off, so you won't be able to use them while you're using the phone. So you would have to plan around that. Now directly below all the fun switches, you're going to find 4 individual mute buttons, which you just have to push them and it turns the mic off. It's a mute button, you know what they do. So as you can see, you have a lot of control over what your inputs actually are and how loud they are, but what if you need to monitor that in real time? That takes us all the way to the bottom where you'll find 4 individual headphone outputs for each individual input. These are your typical 3.5mm headphone jacks, and each one has its own volume control, so each individual person can control how loud they're hearing themselves. Now what you'll find in the middle here are 4 more buttons, and each one of these holds a sound effect. So if your show has like intro or outro music, or you just like to run a laugh track with your podcast, you can load those right there. The PodTrak P4 even comes with sounds already installed onto the sound pads, but you are able to change them whenever you feel. And of course, just like with everything else, they have their own volume knob here. They even get recorded onto a 5th separate track away from the 4 mic inputs, so if you wanted to mix those separately later in post, you can. Let's dive into some of the features of the PodTrak P4. First thing we're going to do is turn it on with the side on button here. Now the on button is depressed a little bit, which is nice because you won't accidentally turn it on or turn it off in your bag or something. Once we turn on the P4, we are greeted with the Zoom logo here, and then our backlight on the screen will turn on. It'll read the SD card to make sure everything's okay, and then we are greeted with the home screen. When we're on the home screen here, you can currently see our battery level, the amount of time left on the SD card, and your current recording status. Also, when you leave it alone for too long, the backlight turns off, preferably to save battery. You can also see each individual track for each of the microphones, and the square here is for the soundboard. So you can see as we're playing that, I'll turn the volume up. You can see as we're playing that, we get a little bit of volume levels there. And then this last track here is the levels of the final output, so you're able to monitor all of that from the screen. Now you'll notice whenever we're turned on, our 4 sound pads here will be illuminated, and our screen here will also be illuminated. So let's zoom in on the screen and see what the menus have for us. So you'll notice on our screen here we'll have the 4 buttons that control play, pause, stop, and our record button. And we also have our menu button. Let's just go ahead and press that. Now you can see we can go ahead and go into our files, and you can actually see I do have some recordings here that I can select if I wanted to and play. And now we have in our sound pad files, we can see which each one of the sound pads have on them. Then we can go down to mic settings, and we can see that we have a low cut setting that we can choose to be on and off for each individual input. And we also have a limiter, which we can also choose to be on each individual input. From here we have file transfer, which will allow us to connect to a computer. And then we have the actual device settings. We have our USB mix minus mode, which we'll go over in just a second. We can set our date and time. And we can change the LCD contrast. The default here is 5. It can go as low as 1 or as high as 10. We'll just set that back to 5. Going down once more, we have the battery. We can choose what kind of battery we actually have connected. We have auto power off, which I always have that set to on because why wouldn't you? The SD card, we can format it or test the card. And then we also have the factory reset, which will reset the PodTrak P4 back to its factory settings. So as you can see, we have a lot of control over our settings here with the PodTrak P4. And when it's time to turn off the P4, you just press and hold the power button once more, and you get the goodbye, see you message, and then you know it's off. Let's talk a little bit about the USB mix minus feature now on the PodTrak P4. Let's imagine now that there's 2 people recording locally to the PodTrak, and now there's a 3rd person conferencing in on a phone call. What we want is for all 3 channels to be recorded to the PodTrak, but we don't want the person on the phone call to be able to hear themselves, because then that introduces an echo to them and it could potentially cause feedback. So what we want to send back to the caller is a mix of all the people in the conversation minus the actual caller. Normally setting this up takes a lot of extra cables and a lot of extra work, but that feature is built right into the PodTrak P4. And that's really everything you need to know about the PodTrak P4. This really is one of the greatest investments you can make as a beginner podcaster. At the time of recording, this costs $150, and you get 4 mic inputs, 4 headphone outputs, sound banks, individual mic controls for each one, including phantom power, and the ability to do conference calls, use this as an audio interface, and has a mix minus all built into it. And there's not many products at this price point that offer all of that. I am a strong advocate of this product because I use it on my own podcast. By the way, in case you didn't know, I have a podcast. It's called Nothing. It's me and my friends Gabriel and Edwin, and we just talk about, honestly, not much of anything. I would love if you just gave it a listen and tell me what you think about it. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something about the PodTrak P4. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things, and I'll catch you guys later.